Now I'm ready. Okay. Today is a good day. I actually had a radio interview today. Very interesting. I'd never done that before. So when you do a podcast, you just basically like have this conversation and you just talk about whatever and answer the questions and have a conversation. With a radio interview, you have to be really precise. And so there were 4 segments and they were 13 minutes each. So at the end of every 13 minutes, she would there was a signal that told us that there was 15 seconds left, and then we had to like wrap it up because then they obviously go to like a commercial break and whether you're done or not. But it was really fun. So when it comes out, I will, because it wasn't live, but we recorded it like it was live. But I don't know when it's coming out. So anyways, super fun. So now I have radio experience. So I guess I'm an expert in that. Not really. Actually, Athena's the expert in radio. So hope you all are doing well. Good to see you, Shelly and Anne and Debbie. Today we are going to talk about the 3 essentials every author needs. And I think you'll probably already guess what they are. In fact, if you want to take a guess, go ahead and put that in the chat below. But no matter where we are on our marketing journey, it doesn't matter if you're just starting writing a book or a speaking platform. It doesn't matter if you have 10 books out and you are really doing well in just cranking those out. Every author needs 3 things. All right, so I don't see anyone guessing. So maybe I will. There you go. Email list is 1. Very good, Anne. And you know what? Email list is so important, and we talk about it all the time, but in the recent weekend when TikTok got banned and there were all these influencers and all the people that were, had a huge followings on TikTok freaking out because they don't own their people. If somebody shuts it down, they're out of luck. And so we want to make sure that we have our emails so that we can, own that and make sure we download it so that we have it just in case our email platform decides to shut down. So email for sure. All right. Good to see you, Rob. But today we're going to talk about the 3 things, and actually we're going to focus on 1. And the 3 things are a great website, an amazing lead magnet, and an engaging email newsletter. But here's the thing that we have to recognize, and probably those of you listening already know this, that each of them build upon the other. So even to get started, we need to address something. And it reminds me of that song. Oh, I have my list. Sorry, here we go. So 3 things, do my little animation: website, lead magnet, and email newsletter. So do you remember the song as a kid that we would sing at the hole in the bucket? There's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza, dear Liza. Anyone remember it? Well, that song actually really shows exactly what is happening with each of us as we try to market, because there is this cycle that one thing depends upon the next thing in order to fix it. So in the hole in the bucket song, we have there's a hole in the bucket, and so the dear Liza says, go and find the stick. And so they find the stick, and the stick is too long. So then they get the hatchet, and the hatchet's too dull. So they have to get the rock, but the rock is too dry. So they have to get the water. And then the water they need to find the water, but they need a bucket to get the water, and there's a hole in the bucket. So it's the whole series that one thing has to happen for the next thing to happen effectively. So marketing is a lot like that. To end up with a fantastic email newsletter, which is what we're going to focus on today, there are a few steps you have to take first, and it's all about breaking it down to a step-by-step process and working backwards until you're ready to move forwards. So some of you already have an email newsletter. The question is, how are you with getting your followers? Because we can have a great email newsletter, we can have amazing content, but if no one's reading it or no one's opening our newsletter, then it's not serving the purpose. So today, as we start with this powerful tool of email newsletters, we are going to discover how to work backwards. And I know I talk about this a lot, but we have to have a step plan of action. And that's for everything we do in marketing in our strengths. So when we discover where is that place where we really feel we need to be, and we start developing that one area, we have to figure out how are we going to get our audience there. And so that's where the step-by-step process comes. So in an email newsletter, I put together this little step-by-step process that we're going to talk through each step individually. And we're going to start with the very first step. So if we want to come to a place where people are interacting with our email newsletter and we're interacting with them and it's being effective, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. And I think one of the main things that we need to start with is to bring value to our audience. So with anything we do, we say it every single time we meet and we are discussing a new either way that we're going to write or a way that we're going to market or what we're going to speak on. We have to determine what our readers need, what our audience needs, what's their interest, what are their challenges, their passions, and we want to create content that's going to speak to the need. It could be inspirational, it could be writing tips, it could be playlists inspired by your book like Anne did. It could be a free resource, all these things that we think of like, what is it that our audience is going to connect with? We need to brainstorm those items so that we can begin to reach our audience. Step 2. We need to then, once we have the idea of what our audience needs, we need to figure out, well, how are we going to connect with them? And the way that we can connect with them is through online resources like social media or in-person events. And so we could do all kinds of things. And we talk about this in length in many of our trainings, but book signings, offering promos, doing webinars, trainings, lives, doing virtual in-person meetups where we are just connecting with people. We might share parts of our book. We may go and speak at an in-person event. How are we connecting with people? And once we connect with them and we meet them and we're in their space, so maybe it's at a bookstore or it's at a women's or men's retreat, maybe it's in a church setting or a community setting, wherever it is we are now reaching people. So we have the need, we found some people, now we need to give them something. And this is where the lead magnet comes in. And so lead magnet is something that is one of the main 3 things that you need. And you need the lead magnet in order to get people to be part of your email newsletter in most cases. So this is obviously something that brings you value. We have a whole training on this and worked on this together. It can be a free chapter, a downloadable checklist, a guide, a devotional, a PDF of some sort, anything that's going to really bring your reader some value. It can be connected to your book, it can be connected to your message, or it can just be something that you really feel your audience needs in order to get the message across that you have. Then you start to build your email list. And this is where you need a good website, because if you don't have a website, you probably won't have a form in order to get their email. So create that form on your website so they can click there. They want the lead magnet, they fill out the form, and now you have captured their email. All right, so now you're capturing people's emails. You also then need a place to house your newsletter, to have all your emails. And so you can find that newsletter platform, MailChimp, ConvertKit, Substack, FG Funnels. There's so many of them out there that you can use. Constant Contact. So learning how to develop that form or that platform and have engaging, graphics and engaging content, which then is the next part, creating content. So now, once you have all of those things in place and you now have an email list that you're starting to collect, we need to then start bringing content to our reader. this is where you go back to what is a need that they have. And we want to continually meet that need so that they will say subscribed to our email newsletter. We always say, if someone unsubscribes to your newsletter, they're probably not your audience. So don't fret. You don't have to pay for them to be part of your email newsletter if they don't even really want to be there. So it's actually a good thing sometimes. But you can give them updates, you can give them advice, you can give them encouragement, behind the scenes stories, maybe as you're writing your book and they're now interested in that, how your writing's going, exclusive offers, getting them to engage, doing giveaways, having guest bloggers, guest email newsletter contributors, collaborating with other people. So creating really good content. And then once the content is created, you can send it. And you want to send it regularly. You want to make sure that you are being consistent. So if you say you're going to show up weekly, show up weekly. If you say you're going to show up monthly, show up monthly. And then invite your readers to do something. When you have a call to action, even if it's simple as just a question, like if you tell a story about something that happened to you, maybe the weather in the South is all snowy right now. So maybe you're writing a blog about that and you say, how do you deal with, or what do you do when you're snowed in for the day? And then people would just simply answer that question and you'll have the back and forth interaction so that you know who actually is reading your email newsletter. I know Anne did this at our email that we sent out for Redemption Press. I put something at the very, very bottom. I wanted to see who actually looks at this email all the way to the bottom. And Anne answered the question that I had there. So I knew right away that Anne actually read the email all the way through. And then once you do send your email newsletter, make sure that you interact with those who respond. When someone writes back to you from your email, then you want to take the time to respond to them and you want to encourage them to continue that conversation with you if necessary. So the reason for this whole training today is to really recognize, like, how do we then work backwards? How do we know what we want to have? And then what steps do we need to plug up the hole so that we can eventually get to the place where we can start? So in the case of an email newsletter, you want interaction. You want to be able to interact with your audience. And so how do you do that? You send them a newsletter. How do you get the newsletter into their inbox, or what do you need for the newsletter? You need content. And then you need to figure out where you're going to put the content, which means you have to have emails to place in the content in the email platform to send the newsletter, which means you need to place something that's going to collect the emails, which means you need to promote that thing, that lead magnet that you have, which means you need to figure out what is the thing that you're going to give to your audience. And that is how you create a step-by-step plan of action to be able to get to the goal that you have. Now, as we're talking about marketing in your strengths, how could you, as an author, leverage an email newsletter in the gifting that you have? An email newsletter can meet so many needs. So if you are the prolific penman, you actually have a great advantage because you already really love to communicate with words, and an email newsletter does a lot of that. But if you are more the person that is on the platform, you can use video. You can have a video on your email newsletter, in your email newsletter, for them to watch. So you can connect it to your YouTube channel or to your Vimeo channel, wherever you want to host your emails or your videos. So you can use that communication skill to reach your email list. If you are, what's the other ones? Oh, the techie person, they can do some really fun things. There's all kinds of things. If you really get into that platform and you start playing with it, you can do, I know with FG Funnels, which is what we use, you can do like almost like reels where you can have little slides that go by to create, quotes or an advertisement, commercials, marketing, show some of your books. They have forms that you can ask them questions. They have surveys that you could do. There's all kinds of fun things that you can incorporate into your email newsletter. Also, if you're really techie, you probably can figure out how to utilize all of the different ways to organize it. It doesn't all have to be in one straight column. You can do different segments. You could have 2 across or 3 across. There's so many ways if you really dive deep to make your email newsletter look amazing. Although sometimes just basic text is the best way to go because that's what people will interact with most. And then what's the final one? The community collaborator, using your email newsletter to collaborate with others and really strengthen your email list. Because if you are featuring someone, so like, for example, every year, probably twice a year, the Speak Up Conference will feature a blog that I'll write, and they ask me to write one for them. And so I write it. And when they do, I actually put that out on my social media and in my areas of connection, like, hey, I wrote this blog for Speak Up. You should go on and read it. Now they're getting people to connect with them, and there can be a link there on their email for them to subscribe to their email list. So lots of ways in your gifting to use email newsletters, but it definitely is a place that you need to land no matter who you are. And I know we talk about it all the time, but that is definitely the way to go to really have all of your people that follow you in one place that you have access to, and you have control over what you're giving them and what they are seeing. So I think that is all for today. Next time we meet, we're going to take the same steps, and we're going to do a couple other types of marketing techniques and how you can figure out what your goal is, work backwards to make sure that goal happens, and then how you can use that within your own specific strength to leverage it to build your audience and bring the message that God's given you to the people that you have to reach. So thanks for joining me today. Always fun to have you here. We do have a coaching coming up on Saturday. So tomorrow's Friday. So Saturday, during that coaching, we're going to take that questionnaire that I gave you, and we are going to work through it and really develop goals for 2025, so that as we move out of this series in a couple weeks, we'll be able to really focus on how do we make a mark in 2025 and be in a different place by the time January comes around next year. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you all. Well, I won't see you Saturday because Sarah and Athena are doing that with you, but I'm sure it'll be an amazing session together. So thanks for joining me. Bye for now.